My name is Ethan Hayes and I am the founder and CEO of Hayes Tech, 38 years old. I have a successful life in the eyes of others, wealth, fame, and status. However, the insecurity and anxiety I felt deep inside was always with me. It was Olivia's birthday and I tried to show my love with the latest model cell phone as a birthday gift. She was the only sunshine in my heart and used to bring me endless warmth. However, nowadays, she is no longer as happy and contented as she used to be. "Happy birthday, Olivia," I said with a smile, handing her the beautifully wrapped gift. Olivia smiled as she accepted the gift, but I could tell she wasn't really happy about it. "Thank you, Ethan." Her voice was soft and distant. At that moment, a wave of unease grew within me in vain. She had been looking so glum lately, and no matter what gifts I gave her, they never really made her happy. I kept telling myself that she was just tired, or that something was bothering her in life. But the discovery that night completely destroyed all my mental defenses. That night, I just finished a long meeting, taken a quick shower, and walked into the bedroom. Olivia was still sitting on the end of the bed, the new cell phone in her hand. Only instead of focusing on the screen, her eyes were staring off into the distance through the window. I kissed her forehead gently, and then turned to check on Emma's status. My daughter was sleeping peacefully and carefree. A warmth emerges in my heart. By the time I returned to the bedroom after taking care of Emma, Olivia had already closed her book and was ready to fall asleep. I lifted my phone and opened the screen, overlooking the unread text message. It was from Mark, my best friend from college, and one of the directors of the company. The wording of that text was incredibly ambiguous. "What a fabulous candlelight dinner tonight. Glad I got to spend quality time with you." Oh. My fingers froze on the screen and my heart suddenly lost its rhythm. The text message flashed in front of my eyes over and over again, and my breathing became rapid. "Mark, when did he and Olivia get so close?" A wave of suspicion and anger like never before surrounded me. I thought I was able to face everything calmly and rationally, but at this moment, I felt like my world was starting to fall apart. Throughout the night, I tossed and turned, images of them together constantly floating in my mind. I tried to find various explanations, but none of those explanations could quell the anger in my heart. I loved Olivia, she was all I had, but now her heart seemed to be far from mine. I spent that night in pain and confusion, unable to sleep peacefully. It seems like yesterday when we first met Olivia on campus. That sunny afternoon, she took me to see the art club's exhibition. These are the works of our club members. There are paintings, sculptures, and some installations. Olivia enthusiastically introduces them, with her unique insights and feelings behind each piece. I don't know much about art, but seeing her bright, sparkling eyes and passionate smile, I slowly began to be drawn into these works. Her explanations were full of reverence for beauty and love of creation, and that enthusiasm infected me. "So you're saying that all of these pieces were made by members of your club?" I couldn't help but ask. "Yeah, everyone puts a lot of heart and soul into it." She smiles. "Each piece has its own unique story." "So, what about your work?" I asked curiously. "My work?" She smiled slightly shyly. "Over there, some of my oil paintings." She took me to a wall where several beautiful oil paintings hung, colorful and full of life. I was particularly attracted to one of them, a painting of sunlight pouring over a lake, which shimmered as if with endless warmth. "Did you paint this picture?" I asked, pointing to the painting of the lake. "Yeah, what do you think?" There was a flash of anticipation in her eyes. "I think it's very beautiful." I answered honestly, "The painting makes me feel warm." "Thanks." Her cheeks blushed slightly. "This is the lake in my hometown. I used to play over there when I was little. This painting reminds me of the good times of my childhood." Hearing her say that, I felt a deep connection, as if the distance between us had suddenly grown closer. I knew at that moment that my feelings for her were no longer just a superficial fondness, but some kind of deeper resonance. From that day on, we were together almost every day. Even during the busiest exam week, we would take time out and share our life with each other. During that time, I felt for the first time that life is not only about data and code, but also about endless beauty and expectation. Time passed, and after graduation, Olivia and I moved on to new lives with each other. I started Hayes Tech and worked on my business, while Olivia chose to support me and gave up her design dreams for me. At first, I thought it was all for our future, that I could create a carefree environment for her. However, the stress and busyness of work gradually distanced us. Olivia became more and more silent, and her smile gradually disappeared. One night, I worked late at the company before returning home. Pushing open the door, I found the room lit only by a dim table lamp and Olivia sitting on the sofa, her eyes staring blankly ahead. Olivia? I called her name softly. She turned her head to look at me, the light in her eyes having long since faded to nothing but endless exhaustion. You're back. Her voice was low and tired. I'm sorry, I've been so busy with work lately. I put my briefcase down and walked over to sit next to her. Ethan, her voice suddenly became husky. Have you ever wondered what went wrong between us? Question? I froze. You mean our relationship? Yes, she nodded. After we got married, you became busier and busier and I felt more and more neglected. Her words were like sharp knives stabbing into my heart. I had always thought that my efforts were fighting for our future, but I didn't realize that I was ignoring her needs and feelings. Olivia, I know I haven't been there for you enough lately, but it's all for the betterment of our future. I tried to explain, but I need more than just material fulfillment. Tears welled up in her eyes. I want us to have more interaction and intimacy than just living under the same roof. I took a deep breath, not knowing how to respond to her. The pressures and responsibilities of my job left me with nothing else to think about, while her disappointment and pain left me feeling powerless. After that night, the rift between us became more and more obvious. She gradually withdrew from her social circle and spent more time at home, while I became more and more obsessed with my work, trying to escape my inner confusion by staying busy. It was at this time that Mark Anderson, my good friend from college, came into the center of our lives, a man of great manners and social skills. Not only was he a shareholder in my company, he was one of the most important funders of my career. In the beginning, the relationship between the three of us was quite cordial, with Mark showing great enthusiasm and appreciation for Olivia, often taking her to social events. I was happy to see that he was able to bring some joy to Olivia's life. After all, a party like this is always a good way to forget your troubles for a while. Ethan, you're always busy with work. You should spend more time with Olivia. Mark casually told me once when he was drunk. Olivia is a very special person. You need to cherish her. Yes, Mark, I forced a smile. I know I need to spend more time with her. But that night, his words echoed in my ears. I began to realize that I had indeed neglected Olivia for too long. However, as work got more intense, I didn't do anything about it. However, one day I started to notice something unusual. That night was the day before I found that text message. After a busy day, I was on the road when I heard an unfamiliar voicemail. Ethan, there's something I think you should know. About Mark and Olivia. The tone of the message was hesitant and cryptic, but it stirred something inside me. At the time, I didn't pay much attention to it, just thought it might be some misunderstanding or prank. However, a suspicion began to grow in the back of my mind. When I got home that night, I paid special attention to the interaction between Olivia and Mark. Sure enough, the eye contact between them seemed to hide some kind of tacit understanding that I couldn't understand. Ethan, you're back just in time. Mark sees me walk into the room and says with a big smile, I was just talking to Olivia about the party next weekend and I was hoping you could come. Oh yeah. I tried to hide my inner turmoil. Sure, I'll try to make time. At the next party, I felt an inexplicable pressure. Olivia looked at me with a hint of apology, and Mark's warmth and attentiveness alerted me to the fact that there was more to their relationship than meets the eye. There is more to their relationship than meets the eye. Finally, the night that text message appeared, all the doubts reached their peak. I overheard Mark's flirty text message to Olivia and instantly felt my world come crashing down. That text message replayed over and over again in my mind, and I was filled with pain and anger that Mark, the man I'd always considered my best friend, was carrying on such an intimate relationship with Olivia behind my back. My heart felt like it was being torn apart, anger, jealousy, and pain all intertwined. I couldn't think calmly anymore, and all that was left in my mind was the endless anger I felt at their betrayal. But I wasn't going to make it easy for them. I decided to launch my own investigation to uncover the truth of it all and make them pay the price they deserve. After I found that ambiguous text message, my thoughts were in a mess. Suspicion and anger made me restless. Nevertheless, I continued to act as if nothing had happened and went on with my daily life. But inside, I was already in turmoil. To uncover the truth, I decided to go to some extreme measures. I installed surveillance software on Olivia's cell phone and computer, keeping a close eye on her every move. As I watched the words and images pulsating on the screen, my heart grew colder and colder with each passing day. For the first few days, the surveillance didn't reveal anything unusual, and Olivia's interactions with her friends seemed uneventful, as if she were just a normal wife and mother. But my instincts told me there had to be something hidden behind it all. Finally, one day, I caught her on surveillance having a conversation with Mark, who sent her a message asking her to meet him for coffee. Olivia didn't reply immediately, but eventually agreed. I was heartbroken and furious. I decided to investigate further and reached out to my friend David to help me get to the bottom of this. David, I need your help. I confided in him that day in the company conference room. What is it, Ethan? Asked David, concerned. I suspect there's something going on between Olivia and Mark. I say with difficulty. David frowned. Ethan, I know Olivia. She wouldn't betray you. Are you sure you're not the one who's overthinking this? I need you to look at something for me. I handed him the surveillance data. I know you're a good friend and I need your support. David scrutinized the data and looked grave. Ethan, I want you to handle this calmly. We need more evidence, and we can't jump to conclusions based on these suspicions alone. I'll be cool. I forced myself to be calm, but inside I was already in waves. Over the next few days, I became increasingly obsessed with monitoring Olivia's every move. I was able to see every move she made, whether it was texting, calling, or searching the internet. However, instead of easing my anxiety, this approach made me more uneasy. I became more paranoid, always suspecting that she was hiding some ulterior motive behind her. In the meantime, I decided to test their relationship further. At one of the company parties, I consciously or unconsciously observed their interactions and realized that they were indeed much closer than average. That night, I stopped Mark in the parking lot after the party. Mark, do you have time to talk? I tried to suppress my inner turmoil. Sure, Ethan. Mark smiled as he approached. What's up? I just wanted to ask if you and Olivia have been getting close lately? I asked tentatively. Mark's momentary hesitation made me even more skeptical that my instincts were right. Oh, we're just friends, just talking. There was an unspeakable unnaturalness in his tone. Friends? I stared at him. You guys don't text like you're just friends. He froze for a moment, then smiled awkwardly. Ethan, you've really got it all wrong. We're just regular friends. I didn't pursue the matter further, but the suspicion and anger inside me could no longer be suppressed. I knew that I had to find out more evidence and uncover the truth of it all. I had to keep my marriage and make the betrayal pay. I know that mere surveillance and suspicion won't bring the truth to the surface. I needed to find a piece of evidence that neither Olivia nor Mark could argue with. So a bold plan took shape in my mind. At night, I sat in my empty office, the light in front of the screen reflecting my face. I opened the programming tool and started my plan, forging emails. First, I found some of Mark's regular emails to Olivia, carefully mimicking his tone and wording. Then, I started editing a new email that would change everything. The email went something like this. Dear Olivia, this time with you has been the happiest time of my life. We know each other so well. It's as if it was meant to be. I know that our respective situations are complicated, but I really hope that you will consider being with me and getting out of your current life once and for all. We can go away together, far away, to a place where no one knows us, and start over. I've got everything ready for us, just waiting for you to nod your head. Love, Mark. Looking at the forged email, a cold smile appeared at the corner of my mouth. I believe that this email is enough to convince everyone of the misbehavior between them. I sent. the email to Olivia's email address and set up an auto-forward on her computer in advance so that the email could be seen by David as well. That way, my good friend David could help me deliver the truth. The next afternoon, David found me in a hurry. "Ethan, you need to see this," he said, handing me his cell phone, which showed the forged email. "This?" I looked at the email with feigned surprise, but inwardly I was filled with amusement. I really can't believe how Olivia could do something like this. David's voice was filled with confusion and anger. "I don't know what to say, David," I sighed. "But this is reality and I need your help." David nodded faithfully. "What are you going to do?" "I need her to admit to all of this," I whispered, "and I need to know how much more I don't know." Over the next few days, I continued to carefully lay out my plan, making sure that every detail had the desired effect. I knew that the final confrontation was coming and all the truth would be exposed. During that time, I felt like an outsider watching my life spiral out of control. I kept reminding myself that it was all about guarding my marriage and my family. But deep down, that restlessness and anxiety never subsided. Finally, one evening, I decided it was time to confront Olivia. I had prepared everything, but my heart was still pounding violently when I actually confronted her. "Olivia, we need to talk," I told her seriously. She looked at me, a flicker of doubt in her eyes. "Okay, what is it?" I took out my cell phone and opened the forged email so she could read it. She stared at the screen, her face turning pale for a moment. "What is this? You tell me. What is it?" My voice was cold, suppressing the anger inside me. "Ethan, I swear I don't know anything about this." Her voice shook a little. "This email wasn't sent to me." "What about Mark?" I stared intently into her eyes, as if trying to see into her soul. "Are you and him really just friends?" We're just friends. I always thought you knew that." There was sadness in her eyes. "But this email says it all. You've gone beyond friends." I didn't give her a chance to continue her defense. After the revelation of my forged emails, Olivia became more depressed and confused. I, on the other hand, was filled with guilt, but my obsession with uncovering the truth grew stronger. One day, I decided to create an opportunity for Olivia and David to be alone. I was sure that under David's questioning, Olivia would reveal her innermost truths. "Olivia, I'm going to be traveling for a few days, and David will be coming over for dinner tonight to keep you company," I told her. She nodded, her eyes twinkling with unease. Apparently, she was still pondering the authenticity of that email. That night, David arrived at our house on time, and the atmosphere between the three of us seemed unusually somber between dinners. After finishing dinner, I excused myself to go upstairs to get some things, leaving David and Olivia alone in the dining room. "Olivia, I have something to ask you." David opened his mouth, a hint of hesitation and concern in his voice. "Yes?" She looked up, looking a little nervous. "That email. You know what I'm talking about, don't you?" David tried to keep his tone mild. Her eyes moistened momentarily, obviously still saddened by the shock of that letter. "David, I really don't know. That email wasn't sent to me." Her voice held a slight tremor. "But the facts as I see them make it hard not to be skeptical." David continued. "In the beginning, Mark and I were just regular friends." Her voice choked. "We had a lot of interaction at work, but it was all for projects. Then," she paused, as if thinking about how to continue. "Later what?" David pursued. "Later, I admitted that Mark was indeed a special person to me." She lowered her head. "But I never thought about actually leaving Ethan." "So you and Mark really don't have any?" David asked, trying to be careful. "No." She shook her head. "Nothing substantial happened between us. I have no idea what that email was about or why I got it." When I heard this, my mind became complicated upstairs. Was she lying? Or had I misunderstood it all? The inner conflict and contradiction shook my firm beliefs more and more. But it's clear that David isn't entirely convinced by her explanation. He tries to reassure her, but he can't hide his skepticism either. "I just hope you realize that Ethan is a good man and he deserves to be cherished," David concluded. "I know." Her voice was barely audible. That night, after David had left, I went up to Olivia and looked at her tear-stained face with mixed feelings. "Ethan, why are you doing this to me?" Her voice was filled with pain and despair. I felt like my heart was bleeding too, but for the sake of the truth, I told myself I couldn't back down. "I just want to know if you still love me," I asked. "Of course I love you. Always have." Her answer made my heart flutter slightly. However, I still can't get over it. The seeds of suspicion have been planted deep in my heart, driving me step by step into a deeper darkness. After that night, the gap between us became even more pronounced, as if an invisible wall lay between us, making each other feel isolated. I knew that the moment to reveal all the truth was not far away, and I was mentally prepared to endure everything, no matter what the outcome. I kept replaying Olivia's words that she still loved me, that she hadn't betrayed me. Yet, that email, those monitored messages, were a constant reminder of my suspicions. My heart was full of contradictions and struggles. I didn't know how to face the dilemma in front of me. After that conversation, the relationship between Olivia and I completely fell apart, but I continued to be obsessed with revenge. I began to plan a deeper revenge that would make it impossible for their lives to remain peaceful. My first step was to destroy Mark's business. Through sophisticated hacking techniques, I quietly broke into his company's internal network and stole a lot of confidential information. I was paid handsomely for this information on the black market, but I didn't care about the money. For me, destroying Mark was the goal. Soon after, Mark's vulnerabilities were publicly exposed and his company was plunged into a huge crisis overnight. Whereas before he had been in a great position, he was now facing financial ruin and loss of customers. Police investigations and allegations follow, and he ends up in jail on suspicion of committing a business crime. Watching Mark being arrested, my desire for vengeance was fulfilled. However, I didn't stop there. My next target was Olivia, and even though deep down I still loved her, the seeds of jealousy and anger that had been planted had taken root and consumed my sanity. I began to utilize various means to undermine her reputation in the design world. Through behind-the-scenes maneuvering, I contacted influential media outlets to spread negative rumors about her. The rumors spread quickly, and Olivia's career was in serious trouble. Her projects were canceled, her clients terminated their contracts, and everything she had worked so hard for was destroyed in an instant by my manipulation. Every time I saw her disappointment and despair, I felt a sense of vengeance in my heart. But instead of giving me real pleasure, it made me more and more lonely and empty. That inner voice began to question me. Is this really the right thing to do? Do I really need to fill the emptiness inside by doing this? As I gradually brought my plan to a climax, David finally found out what I was planning behind the scenes. Being the only friend I trusted, he stepped up to try and stop me. "Ethan, you've done enough. Stop." David looked at me, his gaze filled with helplessness and pain. I tried to ignore his words. "You don't understand, David. They betrayed me and must pay the price." "Ethan, you're only destroying yourself," he said more pleadingly. "You're not the same person you used to be." I froze, looking into David's eyes, momentarily speechless. He was my only remaining friend, the only one who dared to confront me, but my heart was too blinded by hate to listen to any advice. One day when I came home from work, David burst through the door and tried to have a final conversation with me about redemption. "Ethan, you're going to destroy everyone at this rate, including yourself." There was desperation in his eyes. "Are you really going to ruin this with your own hands?" "I'm going to make them understand the price of betrayal, David," I said excitedly. "There's no way back from this revenge." David looked at me, glumly. "So have you thought about what you're going to lose?" I stopped responding, my mind completely taken over by hatred. However, the wheel of fate did not stop turning. During a heated argument with David, I accidentally pushed him down and David fell to the ground unconscious. At that moment, the whole world seemed to stand still. I stared at the unconscious David on the floor and was struck by a great shock and remorse. I realized that I had really gone to the edge of madness. The ambulance took David to the hospital in critical condition. The doctor told me that his condition was not optimistic and that he might be left with permanent damage. I sat in the hospital corridor, filled with endless remorse and self-blame. Looking at David in the ICU, I closed my eyes and tears slipped silently down my face. I knew that no matter what the outcome was, it could never be undone. In the cold corridors of the hospital, I felt unprecedented loneliness and despair. At that moment, I finally realized that hatred and revenge not only did not allow me to be redeemed, but pushed me into a deeper abyss. I personally destroyed my friends, my wife, and the self I was once proud of. Walking up to Olivia, I whispered, "I'm sorry, Olivia. I was wrong. I ruined everything for us." She didn't respond, just looked at me quietly, tears streaming down her face silently. That night, I sat in the hospital corridor, filled with endless remorse and self-blame. I finally realized that no matter what the outcome was, it could never be undone. 3 years later, when I stood in front of my home again, the fire of revenge was gone from my heart, replaced by deep regret and emptiness. Knowing that I needed to get away from it all, I left the company in the hands of trusted people and set out on my own journey around the world, trying to find redemption in my lost self. During these 3 years, I have traveled to many corners of the world, trying to heal my inner wounds through travel. Despite the beauty of the scenery, the wounds inside are a constant reminder of the people and things I have lost to my madness. One day I traveled to Florence, Italy. In this city full of artistic flavor, I felt an unspeakable peace. Walking through the ancient streets and looking at the buildings full of history, I felt as if I had entered another world. One afternoon in Florence, I accidentally walked into a small gallery. The paintings in the gallery were full of vitality and spiritual beauty that caught my eye. One painting in particular caught my eye, a painting of a lake, its surface as calm as a mirror, with the sun shining on its surface. The painting reminded me of a previous painting by Olivia, so similar in style and emotion. My heart skipped a beat as I walked toward the gallery owner and tried to inquire about the author of the painting. "Excuse me, who is the author of this painting?" I asked impatiently. The owner smiled and replied, "Oh, the author of this painting is a female painter named Lily. She is a Chinese who came to Florence 3 years ago and opened this gallery here." "Lily, where is she? Can I see her?" I asked eagerly. The owner shook his head. "She rarely shows up. Usually just comes to the gallery late at night to organize her work." Upon hearing this, a strong feeling rose in my heart that Lily could very well be Olivia. I came to the gallery every day for the next few days, hoping to see Lily, but there were only beautiful paintings in the gallery, not her. Nevertheless, I still insisted on coming to the gallery every day, looking at the déjà vu painting of the lake and remembering the good times and the mistakes I had endured. Every inch of the brushstrokes on the canvas seemed to speak of our past and hurts. Finally, on a moonlit night, I wandered to the gallery door, and that familiar voice inside me resounded once again. Perhaps this was my last chance to try to see her. The door of the gallery gently opened and a figure quietly appeared. Her back was still slender and elegant, as if the years had left no trace on her. I held my breath and quietly approached. "Lily," I called softly, and her figure suddenly jolted and slowly turned around. At that moment, our eyes met and 1,000 words were spoken. Though the years have changed our faces, those eyes are more than familiar to me. "Olivia," I said with a quiver and excitement in my voice. She nodded slightly, tears glistening in her eyes. "Ethan, it's been a long time." We stood silently in the gallery, and time seemed to stand still. Past hurts, regrets, loves, and hates all dissolved into invisible bubbles in this moment. "I'm sorry, Olivia. I have made unforgivable mistakes." My voice trembled with remorse. "I've been searching for redemption all these years, but the only way I could truly find relief was to face you." Tears slipped from her eyes, but her expression was unusually calm. "The past is the past, Ethan. I have found my way, and I hope you find your true self too." "How have you been?" I asked with concern. "I've had a good life." Her smile held a hint of relief. Art was my salvation. It allowed me to find myself again. Then I tried to say something, but had no way to speak. "Ethan, everything will be fine," she whispered. "The hurts of the past will heal, and we all have a future." That night, We talked for a long time, sharing our experiences and feelings of the past 3 years. Although we could never go back to the old days, at least, we found peace of mind and relief in this moment. Hatred and remorse were sublimated in mutual understanding and forgiveness. The moment I said goodbye, I felt a sense of relief that I had never felt before. Although the future was still full of unknowns, I knew that I had already crossed over that darkest time. Leaving Florence, I continue my journey around the world with a new hope in my heart. The past, like the flowers on the other side of the river, will eventually wither away with the passage of time. As long as there is love and forgiveness in our hearts, we will all eventually move towards true salvation. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.